Hello, my name is Visklugers and welcome to Armored Warfare and the update 0.18 preview. Now the major changes that the update will bring is of course the global operations, which has been quite a big talk recently, the Garage 2.0, Albino Proving Grounds, Wheeled Vehicle Physics Update, PvE Mission Harbinger Overhaul, and changes to anti-tank guided missiles. And of course, like always, there's gonna be tons of small little changes, updates and fixes, but these are the main features of the patch. And let's just jump right onto it. So the global operations, I won't be going too deeply on this one. I'm gonna add a link to the description where you can read more detailed article and so forth if you don't yet know what this feature is. But essentially it's an alternative PvP mode with some PvE elements to it. Actually quite a lot of PvE elements to it. The biggest thing that you will notice is that it has respawns, unlimited respawns even, so dying is not that punished. Also, there's multiple objectives, there's secondary objectives, and there's also some AI controlled vehicles that are kind of a third team. They will attack both teams, your team and the enemy's team. So that is going to be super interesting. And personally, I haven't liked PvP that much, because it is very punishing mode. And I feel like this mode really can give you more room to practice and try different stuff and kind of have more fun instead of like the traditional PvP where if you make one mistake you're dead. So the regular PvP trades a lot of the fun factor for the skill factor. So I'm really personally waiting to see how the global operations play. Now then we have the Garage 2.0. And this is what the developers have to say. We have overhauled the Garage visuals to give it more polished look in preparation for more advanced features such as the Garage UI overhaul and Armor Inspector, scheduled to appear in the future. A new advanced render significantly improves the graphics quality, making all vehicles look far better than before. With more elbow room for your stock of tanks, and improved camera and update visuals, the new Garage makes it easier than ever to head your own PMC. So, of course, the Garage updates are always welcome. I didn't have a problem with the current one, but if they're making it better, yeah, why not? But what I'm really always looking forward to is the Armor Inspector. It really gives you some insight on why some shots won't penetrate and why some do, and it makes the learning of certain vehicles a hell of a lot easier. You don't have to take head-on vehicles that you have no idea how to deal with them. Do your homework in the Garage and then you'll know exactly what to do when you face them on the battlefield. But sadly, this feature will not yet be included in the 0.18 patch, but at least they've laid the foundations for the Armor Inspector in the near future. Then we have the Albino Proving Grounds, and this is what they got to say. The test range is special map based on famous Russian Albino Polygon, home of the annual Tank Biathlon event. It allows players to test any vehicle before actually purchasing it in order to check its mobility and firepower. This special map offers a series of obstacles for the players to navigate as well as some practice targets. To access the Albino Proving Grounds, right-click on any vehicle in the Garage and select Test Drive. And a little bit more information was given in the latest Developers Digest. You can click any vehicle in the game that is in the tech tree, so I'm assuming every premium vehicle counts as well. And you can test them. There's some static target dummies and whatever, so you can kind of get the feel of the mobility and somewhat the firepower and the aiming time, stuff like that. But if you do own the vehicle, you can test it with different kinds of upgrades. But if you don't own the vehicle, it's stock configuration. And the rest of the kind of mobility and the statistics remain to be seen until you buy the thing. But at least you get the general gist of what it's kinda going to be like, even though some tanks really change when you get them fully upgraded. But I think the best thing this has to offer, even though if you wouldn't like to test pretty much any of the tanks, a lot of people do like to test the premium vehicles that are in the tree, because let's face it, they are not exactly really cheap. But if you get to check the mobility, check how fast they turn and so forth, how drastic is the reload and so on, I think I might be buying a couple of premiums with a lot more ease at my heart, knowing what I'm actually buying. And then we got the wheeled vehicle physics update. We've updated wheeled vehicle friction in order that light wheeled vehicles, especially those with only 4 wheels, do not break traction as easily if one or more of the wheels lose contact with the terrain. The end result is that the light vehicles should feel far easier to control, especially over uneven terrain. Now I feel like this has always been the major problem of the wheeled vehicles in general in Armored Warfare. Another thing that I feel like is quite a big problem with the wheeled vehicles is that their wheels turn really slowly. So for instance, AFVs that have vehicles and are super fast, it can get really hard to make like sudden maneuvers. I feel like the VBL managed that reasonably well, but the quite new VBR, I am speechless of that vehicle. I feel like it can be just something that you have to get used to, but for me, I haven't gotten used to it in a couple of games and it just feels horrendous. So I would hope personally that they would take a close look at the speed of which the wheels turn. Because even when you are in slow speeds and the friction isn't the problem, it can get really frustrating that you can't turn your wheels where you actually want to go. But that remains to be seen. And the friction thing, yeah, I think that's the bigger problem of these two problems that I mentioned here. Then we have the PvE mission Harbinger Overhaul. We gave the Harbinger mission a significant overhaul. The Harbinger will now take place on the Riverpoint map and will cover a significantly larger area. The Lions of Neckwill have descended upon this village to convert more believers and sell off the rest for profits. It's your job to take out the Lions before they can capture all the civilians. Once the way is cleared, the ISD can send in helicopters to evacuate the civilians. It will fall to you to defend them before they can lift off with the civilians on board. So that is nice. I kinda actually liked the Harbinger map, but it was very, very, very specific on what you actually play as. It was really good on main battle tanks and quite good with light tanks. Tank destroyers, it was kinda okay, but AFVs really couldn't play as AFVs. You had to play AFVs as tank destroyers pretty much. And artillery was quite often just either toast because of the AI artillery or just near useless. So I really liked the idea of the map and something just clicked with me, but at the end of the day it didn't work really well. Let's hope that the upcoming Harbinger map will be a lot better. And finally, I think one of the most life-saving changes that they're going to implement in the next patch, the changes to the anti-tank guided missiles. Vehicles with anti-tank guided missile launchers that were previously stuck in the fixed positions have been updated to allow them to fire at pitched angles. This will help prevent cases where anti-tank guided missiles crashed into the ground whenever vehicle with fixed launchers fired them at a downward angle. Please note that the artwork changes to allow the launcher's models to visually pitch will come at a later date. We also reintroduced the 1.5 second delay when switching between primary and secondary weapon systems. This change was made in order to help alleviate situations where certain vehicles were pumping out too much damage when cycling between their two weapon systems in an overly short amount of time. Now, this is really life-saving situation, I feel like, for vehicles that do have to rely on their missile launchers or anti-tank guided missiles. Like for instance the Swingfire. For this very reason I haven't personally done the review for the Swingfire yet, because it is a surprisingly good vehicle, but it is excruciatingly annoying to play because of the fixed position of the missile launchers. Now this should solve that problem, at least for the most part, with the addition of the recent changes that you don't have to be stationary while shooting the missiles. The Swingfire is a totally new vehicle in comparison to when I grinded it through. So vehicles just like the Swingfire, the Terminator, the Ramka, all the AFVs pretty much, they're gonna be a hell of a lot better so that you don't plant your shots in the ground or loop them over tanks so easily. So that's a really good feature in my opinion. Also, finally, we have some news on the base feature that we have in the game that hasn't been pretty much touched since the game has launched. And unfortunately, in 0.18 patch, it will be completely removed from the game. But even when they remove it, every single player will get the same bonus as if they would have fully built up base, which is kinda unfair for those who did invest the time and effort, well actually it's only time, to build up the base, and good thing for those who hasn't built the base up. What is a little bit sad that for the players that do own base materials, those will not be compensated at all. There's no compensation for them at all. Instead, they might give you some kind of achievement or medal or whatever if you have fully unlocked the base before the patch goes live, which is very small victory. It's one of those like, yeah, well I got this thing, but whatever. But what will we get for the removal of the base feature is that the boot up times of the garage should be a little bit faster every time you go into the game. The boot up time should be faster every time you've completed a match. The loading time should go faster when going back to the garage. Yeah, I don't know, it's a little bit disappointing to see that the base system is going to go away. I think it added just a little bit of own flavor to the game, but honestly they hadn't upgraded it since ever. But they also say that it is possible for the base feature to return at a distant future, but not exactly the way they've implemented it currently. So I really do hope that they would do something with it, and something like that you could, for instance, see all of your vehicles in the garage or something like that, that it would physically change the looks of the garage or something like that. That would be cool, but as of now that won't be for a long time. But in theory, nothing kinda changes, because you still have the exact same bonuses, but it's a bit sad to let it go. But on the other hand, it's just sitting there not doing anything. Then we have a couple of small features that are not coming in the 0.18 patch, but I feel like it's really good to include them here anyway from the Fireside Chat summary. So a lot of these features will be introduced in the 0.2 rebalance update, so that can be quite far away. We don't know anything for sure, but at least we have a little bit heads up of what exactly will be changed. Autocannon rebalance is not a nerf per se, but autocannons will play differently. So we don't really know what that actually means, but the autocannons will be changed, which is quite interesting because I really like the current ones. But, you know, we'll have to see. There are no plans to make smoke grenades cool down longer. The plan is to introduce a so-called magazine system to smoke grenades, where players will have several charges before a long reload. That's interesting, I think, as well. The current plan is to move the Centauro 120 to tier 9 instead of the Draco. As for the Draco, the current plans are to keep it, but beyond that, its exact fate hasn't been determined. Might be a legacy vehicle for those who already got it, or might be worked into the progression still, not 100% decided. So, if you do own the Draco already, good for you. If you don't own the Draco and if you want the Draco, I think this is the time to really start to grind in order to get the Draco. Of course, it might still be obtainable, but there's a chance that it will not be obtainable. Personally, I'm really looking forward to the Draco, so I guess I'm gonna have to grind it just to make sure. So in the 0.19 patch, every single vehicle should be able to own a smoke launcher. And then the already hinted IS-7 main battle tank, that, if I remember correctly, will be a tier 3 main battle tank, will be a part of the first anniversary celebration. So most likely everyone's gonna get that, just like the Type 59 Legend that everyone was able to get just by simply logging into the game at the specific time. Several lines were pushed back past Balance 2.0, so before the Balance 2.0 we're probably not gonna see too many new vehicles. So that's, I guess, a little bit shame, but personally I don't have nearly all of them unlocked, so I value more stable game and gameplay instead of quantity over quality. Adding special camouflages as well as other cool stuff to loot crates is a long-term goal, so probably not gonna see that in a while. We've heard that thing several times now, but we'll have to see when they actually come, probably after the Balance 2.0 and everything. The developers will introduce a PvE survival mode in the future, in which players will strive to stay alive as long as possible against waves of AI opponents. They will also have the option to use the global operations wildcards. Now this is very interesting and something that they've been talking about quite long, but I feel like that would be interesting mode to test out, especially with platoons of, I don't know how many players there are going to be in this game mode, but let's say if it's the 5 that we currently have, if you have a platoon of 5 vehicles, that could work ridiculously well and be ridiculously fun. Let's hope that this feature will not be scrapped and actually will make it into the game in some time in the future. The developers plan to rebalance crew and commander skills in Balance 2.0, where they are planning to add more commander and crew skills, etc. And that would be nice, because the current ones are not bad, but I feel like it's really like there's either or. There's a couple of skills that you wanna go with pretty much every single tank. It kinda depends on your playstyle, but I feel like a lot of people will go for the gunner as the aiming time and the accuracy, cause why the heck not? But I guess that's all for today's 0.18 patch and the Fireside Chat summary. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.